Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Note Genius YouTube channel. My guest today is Dr. Jason Engerman, a man of many roles and many talents. He is not only a note investor, he is also an asset manager. He is the COO and president of a note exchange. He has a few businesses under his belt as well, husband, father, and wow, I don't know how he does it all, but we're going to hear from Jason today, and he's going to give us some insight onto who he is and his note journey. So, how are you today, Dr. Engerman?
I'm doing fantastic. Thank you, Brian. Excited to be here and share my story with you. Great
Yes.
introduction. I appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. You got a lot going on, and I want to make sure I give you your flowers. But yeah, let's just start out with a brief introduction to who you are and how you became a note investor.
Yeah, so a brief introduction would be I started in the Bronx. I was born and raised in the Bronx. That's an important part of my journey. In the 80s Bronx, so it was a little difficult at the time. A lot of homelessness, a lot of poverty in that particular area. I had family and I had faith. So I think that that was really important. That's how I grew up. I actually just returned to my home church a week or so ago for my grandmother's funeral, which is quite nostalgic. So I got to go back to my roots, and there, really interestingly enough, I had a lot of the elders and members tell me, "I remember you before you were born." So I come from a really tight-knit community, right, of West Indian and Southern charm, as my grandparents migrated from the South up to the North to New York. In that experience, I went to about seven different districts, school districts. So we bounced around quite a bit, and that's not uncommon for people from New York. But in doing so, I really felt a passion for teaching and education. I actually started out in computer science and engineering. My parents thought that that was the best path for me. They said, go make the money. So we came out of poverty. They said, go make money. And I said, no, I want to teach. And I wanted to teach math. So I got a math degree. I started doing a lot of teaching. And I taught up here in Pennsylvania because we moved from New York to Pennsylvania. So I got a degree I went to Penn State University first with the math degree in computer science. And then I transferred to East Stroudsburg University. And then after that, I did a lot of work around just not just education, just teaching and learning in general, but both formally and informally. I coached everything under the sun. So I coached basketball, soccer, swimming, football, etc., track, etc., and even snowboarding at one point. Um, and so because I was very active. So I had a passion for teaching, I had a passion for underrepresented populations. And so then I fast forward, got my master's degree at King's University, or Wilkes-Barre University, actually, and then went back to Penn State to finish up a terminal degree in learning design and technology. While I did that work, I did a lot of work on underrepresented populations. I got a National Science Foundation grant. I was able to use esports as a tool to enhance social mobility and 21st century STEM skills in adolescent youth. And then all of that work led to understanding investing. And so I invested in everything from crypto, I did foreign exchange, I did big equities, I did gold and silver and real estate. And so in that experience and passion for still teaching and passion for underrepresented populations, I found out about notes. And so that's when I met up with Jasmine Vaudois and a note assistance program, and I got involved with them. And I was able to, in 1 year, acquire quite a few notes under my belt and also strategies. I used my learning design and technology degree, plus executive coaching, where I worked with NFL players to transition them from the field and post-playing days into Fortune 500 and Fortune 100 companies. I worked for a university and National Science Foundation, like I said, building out infrastructure and ecosystems for learning, gathering 42 institutions and organizations together around one project, which was really neat experience. And to kind of sum it up, I took all of that and said, at the end of the day, the bank owns everything, and the finances really own the buildings that we live in. And understanding that coming out of an impoverished community, ownership and controllership were very important to understand. And so now I spend my time with people that want to build capacity and scale help them grow their portfolios using notes as well as real estate, as well as businesses to advance their causes, employ people, inspire ownership, especially for those that don't meet the traditional means for ownership and bank access, so the unbankable, and help them to develop pathways to home ownership. And I build out communities, essentially is what I do. And I did it in a school setting, and now I do it from a private equity and personal asset management perspective. That
That's
was my growth journey. And children make your journey a little different too. You got to create a lifestyle that you can just be with them and spend time with them and grow them. So that happened out of COVID.
absolutely. We're gonna get into that later as well. But wow, amazing journey up to this point. You've done a lot and continue to do a lot. So congrats on that and keep pushing. But how long ago was it that you met Jasmine?
2021, August of 2021 is when I started the program. Yeah, and then August of 2022 is when I left the W-2. Um, I wouldn't recommend it for most. Most don't have the grit to do that. And it wasn't the first time that I had stepped away to do an entrepreneurial venture. Um, I have great support from my wife, which is great. And that's really helpful. Most people don't may not have that. And a supportive household, but also I've been building to that moment for a long time. My father-in-law is a contractor. My father was in a international brotherhood for electrical workers. We've owned properties, but we didn't know it from the investor standpoint. We just did it. Um, and then we just had put on the investor lens and said, oh, this could be a full-time thing. So I was able to make the jump.
Nice. So in that, I guess 3 year span since 2022 when you went all in, what kind of success have you seen with your note investing? And you mentioned strategies. What kind of systems and strategies have you implemented that help you grow and scale to achieve your goals?
Yeah, so one of the things that we learned about notes is that notes is a portion of a much larger real estate industry. So some people will dive into notes and you can stay inside of notes and exclusively engage in notes, but inevitably they become or turn into real estate. And at some point, if you're a 100% note investor and you don't want to touch the real estate, at that point, you turn it over immediately once you start to see it convert into real estate. And that's the natural life cycle of a note in our space anyway, or real estate notes, because there are other types of notes. So you can put a note on anything. And so for us in the real estate note space, where we have residential, commercial, land, agriculture, et cetera, the vast expanse of it, you can kind of dice it up, stay in that space indefinitely and exclusively. It's difficult though. The reason is because on a retail market where you enter, you're not dealing in volume. You don't have the access to systems like you just mentioned. Um, that are at the highest levels. But most importantly, you don't have the trust. And just the nature of this business is that the more money that you're pushing around in terms of volume of money, the more trust you have because your circles are smaller. So because your circles are smaller, you don't have to deal with the riffraff. You have done transactions 4 or 5 times over with the same individuals. And so you understand their processes. You trust their systems because you know you have a goal, they have a goal. You're in a niche, they are in a niche. You have exactly what they need and what they're looking for at that moment in time. You can make the transaction. And so here's a little bit of education. This is my professorial hat coming on, right? Um, Economics is a function of transactions. You got buyers and sellers in a product, right? But the transactions is what is the engine that drives the economy. More transactions equal a bigger economy. It's really almost that simple. You got to infuse obviously dollars and cents into it, right? But what happens is with the note business, those transactions, when they happen at the larger scale, Fannie and Freddie Mac in the primary markets, $50 million clips, um, there's a lot of trust between their short list of buyers, which are mostly banks and things like that, banks and institutions. And so B2B makes it easy because they've got a lot to lose and they have, regulations all up and down that they have to meet in order to keep people compliant. Well, in our space, the secondary markets, that's not the case. Those rules don't necessarily apply. It's sort of the wild, wild west. And as a result, without the systems and without the trust, A, you have a lot of people that don't know what the hell they're doing. And then B, you have a few people that do know what they're doing. And then you have even fewer people that not only know what they're doing, and have the capacity, the means to do so, but then have the right systems that match up. So to answer your question, finding people, finding systems that work for you, and then finding people that match those systems is where we spend a lot of our time and energy. So to directly answer your question, still working on the systems, still working to scale, building out the network, doing it further with other people. So you have to partner and you have to let go of your ego because you can't do it alone. And you have to rely on buyer networks and groups and teams to build them out. And so what I've been able to do is gather, leverage, um, the non-node assistance program, right? I'll mention them again. It's network, including Jazz and others, and the banking relationships that I'm building and growing, right? And my relationships to help me build out the systems that I need. But it starts with clients, my clients that I've done business with before, and wash, rinse, repeat, and building their capacity and growing their goals. And that's how I started the business, which was they were JV partners, made a lot of JV partners, and then there are people in the community, and I just service their needs. And then I just continue to do that. And if you have that in mind and you have like-minded people, it's easier to scale and grow.
Nice, great answer. On the topic of working with clients, obviously, aside from being an investor, you're an asset manager. What does asset management look like with regard to a portfolio of notes? Obviously, we have our buy boxes, we have due diligence processes, but is there anything that investors should be on the lookout for as they build and grow their own portfolios?
Yeah, and those are two different questions. How do I build my own portfolio and how to help somebody else build their portfolio? And you're using a lot of the same tools and using a lot of the same mechanisms, but depending on their capacity and their access to cash, they may be doing it even faster or larger with different systems that you have. So I have a portfolio of notes myself. It's somewhere in the neighborhood of like 15 to 20 notes. And I can't remember exactly where I'm at right now because everything's in fluctuation. So everything is either on the selling block or getting onboarded. So I'm somewhere between 15 to 20 myself, and I probably need to have someone manage those for me, because the the problems that exist in a smaller portfolio are, um, they're not always in alignment with the size of the portfolio, but they're just different, I would say. And here's how I'd say that. I mean, the assets that I have are $50,000 assets. They're single family residents. They're not commercial, right? I have no commercial in there. I don't have buildings in there. I don't have, apartments and things like that. I got single family residents. So they have their general type of issues, especially as it relates to the paper and the quality of the assets that I bought. Um, and so then on my client side of the house, they've got different flavors of assets, some of which are similar, but they may be higher grade assets. They may be things like assignments of mortgages and traditional mortgages that I may not have in my portfolio. And as a result, those building out their portfolio and their goals are much larger, and being able to get there is it takes a different pathway because they're looking at things like I want $100,000 per month, and I'm looking at things like, well, it'd be great to get 5 grand a month, right? Or 10, or 20. And so those two numbers are very different, and they're for the approach that I'd have to, their assets and what they would want to acquire is different. I'll give you a great example. One of my clients wants to build out residential care facilities. Well, building out the residential care facilities, buying residential care facilities, having notes on them, seller financing them, right? So we have that piece of it where we're on both sides of the house, where A, we have seller financing, and B, we are giving seller financing on the business and the asset itself. So playing both ends of the spectrum of notes, both owning them and then leveraging debt to acquire assets, um, I'm mastering it at a much larger scale, not just single family residence, but a whole business with 11 assets on a 10-acre property, right? That's one of them. Then we're going to go build another one. It's a $35 million project where we demo one asset and then build up another one, and then use the land that we own to do so, and then leverage the land that we owned into the project itself. So I'm back and forth in these assets, building my own portfolio has a specific goal set in mind. I'm obviously now getting inspired to think bigger, reach higher. Really cool things like owning the land and then leasing the building, so going in, getting land contracts and putting contracts on it for a developer to develop on it and sell that piece off. But then I keep the piece of the land, right? Separating the rights is called the bundle of rights in real estate. So you have the land rights, the building rights, and the air rights, and separating those things out. And then you have mineral rights inside of those too. So to answer your question, I am building my own portfolio alongside my clients' portfolios. We're finding opportunities to partner in JV together, which is really cool. I'm excited about that. But then I'm able to scale up their infrastructure to a level that eventually maybe I'll get my own portfolio too. But for now, I'm building out their goals and their dreams, and then aligning those with my own, because I'll reach back to the point that I made earlier, and everything goes full circle. Um, my grandmother passed. She was in hospice. She was in elderly care. It's a space that I'm really passionate about. And now I have a client that's also passionate about that. And that's why I'm working with them. And we do work together to build out opportunities for elderly and um, underrepresented people to get the care that they need. And then we buy those and then improve those. But I'm doing it through my clients. I don't know if that answered your question. Maybe I went off on a tangent.
You got
Yeah.
there. You touched on
Yeah.
it for sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So in addition to building out your own portfolio, you mentioned at the NAP masterclass a few weeks ago that you
Yeah.
also have your three children um investing in notes and kind of learning the note game, ages 6 to 11, I believe, right?
Yeah, they're 8. So 8, 8. I got twins. They're 8, 8, and 11.
Okay.
Yeah, that's important. They also manage a Robinhood account. Um, yeah, they also manage a Robinhood account, and they own silver. They are a very, very interesting bunch. They're doing very well in school as well in their activities. They're thriving. They're doing very well. But um, I taught them how to be well-rounded and diversified. Notes is a big portion of that. In fact, my oldest one, he found out that the getting was good last year. I think must have been about August. He started bugging me about getting another note because he recognized and acknowledged that when you invest, you can make money while you sleep. And so we have conversations about how much did you have to work to get, this income, this performing note income? It's like none. And then he works in the business. So he works in the Engerman Estates business. He said, well, how much do you have to work to get, those couple of bucks? It's like an hour a week. But I want it more. I want it to be more. Um, and how much work are you doing? He's like, yeah, I'm working. You're working me. But yeah, you're doggone right, I am. What do you want more of? He's like, more of the other one, more passive. And so he came up to me all of September, all of October, all of November of last year and demanded that I get him another note. So last year they got a second note, all of them. And so they have the second one in Oklahoma, which is a really cool performing it was an estate that we sold off, and we had to take some of those down, and I did. And so they get a piece of that. They have a contract. Every year we review the contract, and every year they add things to the contract. And so last year we didn't have late fees in there. They wanted to add that. Um, they wanted to increase the interest rate. I didn't let them do that. It was ridiculous. They already have 20%, I think they're getting back on their money. Um, Something crazy like that. But anyway, they share the note. We talk about the insides and outsides of it. And they understand that it's passive, and they understand that investing is a big part of their life. And so whenever they get money, they separate it. They tithe it, they invest it, they save, and then they spend what's left over. And they come up to me with how much they have, and they say, "Hey, look, this is what I want to do with it." And we go, "Okay, is it within the burn rate that we could do per month?" Because we come up with a burn rate. We say, "Look, we can't spend more than this amount per month because this is how much is coming in." And so we make sure to strap that down. We look at Excel spreadsheets and we kind of go through the whole thing. But I mean, what's really neat about it is, yeah, they're involved in the note space. And by the time they're my age, man, I anticipate they have a significant portfolio business that they're running. Um, and they're running it from a very high level, which is great, which is moving systems around. That's what I want them to be able to do. They should be able to move systems and buy businesses. That's the goal.
That's amazing. I come across a lot of people as I venture through this business who tell me at my age, they're like, "Oh man, if I started when you started, I'd be so." Starting at 8 and 11 is I can't even imagine where they'll be in a few short years. Especially as they grow up in the world of technology and AI and all these advancements and things that generations before them did not, have the ability to take advantage of. They're going to be major. We're gonna see them in force for sure. But yeah, that's amazing. So for you, with all of the roles that you hold, husband, father, entrepreneur, asset manager, COO, all these things that you um, do you find that earning that income from mortgage notes alleviates the time and attention cost that maybe you'd incur if you were invested in a bunch of hard assets, tangible real estate?
That's a good question. The question is really the difference between the notes and other tactile, tangible assets. I have a diversified portfolio. I think that the answer is yes, obviously. When I have an exclusively, and some of my clients have exclusively notes that I'm managing. I try to get an 80-20 split. I really prefer a 90-10 split, ideally, because what the 90 performing notes or 80% performing notes will do is it'll offset the stress and the operation costs uh, during the carrying time. You have a carrying cost, a burn rate per month. And if you're smart, I don't, I'm not of the mindset, which some are, just get a bunch of non-performers so you can grab the cash and then take those and put those into performing notes. I don't take that mindset, and others have a different perspective than I do. But I don't take that mindset because the performing notes and the passivity of those performing notes, although there's a tax burden that you can talk about, what it does is it allows you the freedom and the space to really push into the performer. So say I have 8 performers and 2 non-performers. Well, now I can spend the time and energy necessary to actually execute that, especially at the level and the scale you want to be able to do it at. In our space because we're retail, we're in a secondary market, which means we don't have the luxury a lot of times to have all of our notes in one state, in one jurisdiction. We don't have that luxury. We have to spread that out across the country. And so whenever you buy a tape, you got freaking 10 assets in California and 20 assets maybe in Texas, and then 5 assets over in South Carolina. And they're all in different jurisdictions. They're all in different municipalities, which means pain in the ass because You got different rules, different regulations, different assignment of mortgage, different contract for deeds. The paperwork is different. Not only that, the how you navigate the foreclosure process is different. It just makes it so complicated. So when you have an 80-20 split, in my opinion, you have the flexibility in the runway. We always talk about runways in economics or in business. You gotta be able, well, smart people anyway, you gotta be able to understand what your runway is. How long do you have? How much cash do you have sitting and available to last you the next 2 months? You're trying to buy time, essentially. You try to buy time. You need time. Non-performing notes require time. We don't all have a magic ball. We're not all freaking PEMCO or, these other institutions. We're not that. We're retail. We're small. So we don't have the ability to push a button and say, okay, sell all these. And then all the prime assets get out the door and then continue, you have cash to sit on so that you can wait for the other ones that are the tail of the tape, which are real trash. Um, so an 80-20 split is really smart. Um, so to your answer your point then about tangible assets. The tangible assets, they come in a variety of asset classes. So you can buy precious metals and even commodities. And then you're talking about real estate because that's the space that we're in. We did real estate stuff. Actual real estate has its benefits. So don't sleep on the benefits of actual real estate. One of the things that you can do with actual real estate is once you have paid it off to the bank, then you have equity sitting in the asset and you can borrow against it. And that means it's not free money, but it's access to capital. If you know anything about business, we know about the velocity of cash. That's very important, of the speed of money. And so your ability to access it at any point in time is really valuable for any business because at any point in time, your cash flow could be low. And at those points in time, you borrow against the asset and then you do liquid or cash infusions, right? Where you take the cash and you put it into something else that can hopefully explode or advance or enhance your access to capital and your ability to move the money again. So capital circulation can happen so that you can move the funds. And that's what a lot of big wigs are doing right now, actually, even in we're technically in a recession of sorts. Bigger wigs are like, where are the projects? They're looking around like, where are the projects? Where are the projects? And the projects are in physical brick and mortars. I mean, they're not only on paper, they're in projects. Like, what are you doing? Are you doing construction? You're doing development. You're, building new roofs and building new houses and building new environments and things like that. So don't sleep on tangible assets, even if they're under, because you can leverage them in a portfolio to get access to capital. So I don't poo-poo on either one of them. I am in the space of, I understand notes, I understand them very well. But if you also legally, I'm not a lawyer, but if you legally understand bankruptcy, you can understand how to play both sides.
Nice. So you are 2 years out from your 5 year mark. What are your goals that you're working towards? Is there a number you're trying to hit as far as how big you build your portfolio, how many notes you acquire, or what are you working towards? How do you see yourself at the 5 year mark?
Yeah, good question. I didn't think about that in terms of goals. When I got out, I said I needed to replace my income. And if you are ever deciding to leave a W-2, the number one advice I can give you is make sure the maths, and the math has to meet your expenses. So I have met those goals for myself individually, but the next step is to retire my wife. So I've got to double it. So I got to double what I'm doing now. And so I guess the answer is in the next 2 years, I gotta multiply. And if I'm shooting for double, I might as well shoot for 10x. So I guess the goal in the next 2 years is to 10x everything. So I don't think that that is outside of reach. I think that is well within the reach. Capital raising is not something that I thought I'd be doing, but it's something that I happen to be doing. Um, Real estate sales and acquisition is not something that I thought I'd be doing, but it's something that I happen to be doing. And so that's why just I think last week I got my real estate license. So I just finished those documents up. So yay, add more letters to my name, I guess. The funny thing is, I told my brother and I didn't tell my mother. And my mother hits me up and goes, "Oh, congratulations!" And she's making a big deal about it. And I'm going, "Oh, I forgot to tell you. Sorry." It's just for me, it's just one of those things you got to do. One of those list things you have to knock off the list. And the next thing after that's got to be my Series 7 because now I'm starting to raise capital. So I got to go do that thing, right? But I have a goal to be, I guess, more financially free is the idea. And I guess in the next 2 years, let's 10x this bad boy. And I think I've got enough irons in the fire that that can happen. The portfolio of assets under management right now is somewhere in the range of 30 to 40, probably close to 40 million right now, assets under management in 3 years. I didn't think I'd be saying things like that. I definitely have well over 300 now, well over 300 transactions in the last 3 years, which is 100 per year, both notes and real estate. And then I've been able to return at least 17% to my clients. And that's conservative. I haven't looked at those numbers since. I mean, those numbers I've had since the beginning of the year. It's changed. I mean, we're 9 months into this year, so I've probably exceeded that number a lot. So I think in the next 2 years I can 10x things because the place where we are right now, with as you say, I'm into all these businesses, I guess. I'm a professor, was a professor, so I had to have six things going on at once anyway. You have a teaching responsibility, a service responsibility, and then a scholarship responsibility. And so in each of those, I had, four classes and community projects had at least two of those. And then I had, for a scholarship, I had at least three or four, writings that I was doing at a time anyway. So this is kind of normal for me. I think with the amount of volume and opportunities that we have between raising capital, closing on some, liquidating some assets, um, potential with raising funds, money for funds, and what else? Acquisition and renovation. Like I got renovation stuff happening right now. I got an asset down here that I just picked up that I've got to renovate and stuff. 10x is not outside of um the goal, so let's just do that.
That's amazing. That is amazing, and I'm sure you'll reach and not only reach but surpass that. As we wrap up here, do you have any closing thoughts, any advice for someone who may be curious about notes but not sure if this strategy is for them? How would you suggest that people approach this subject, this investment strategy? Um, yeah, what would be your response to that?
No investing is something that I think is is not for everybody. Just like I said, leaving your W-2 is not for everybody. Some people prefer the comfort of working and being told what to do. I mean, that's just what they're comfortable with, and they get a comfortable paycheck, and they can rely on it, et cetera, et cetera. For me, that's super risky, only because of the knowledge I have about ownership and business and entrepreneurship. So for me, that's risky, but for some people, it might be comfortable. So what I'd say about notes is this: it isn't for everybody. That's the uncomfortable truth. Everybody should not engage in notes and note investing. If you're not patient, if you're not a person that can collaborate, if you're not a person that can also give clear communication and direct and delegate, then note investing can't be for you because those are things that are necessary. They're things that you can't control. And also in note investing, whether it be the non-performer or performing side of the house, it's capital intensive. So if you don't have the capacity to go raise funds or have a lot of funds, it's not for you. So if you don't have and I'll say that again because people miss that. If you don't have the capacity to build relationships with people, gain their trust, and earn their money because you'll run out of capital, note investing is going to be very difficult because it requires capital and trust and building relationships. And that's not for everybody. There are some people that I know that are really, 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 really good at trading. And you can do trading in a vacuum with your computer and you could be solo and you're really good at it. So just do that. Do crypto trading. There's nothing wrong with that. Um, But this is a people business, it's a relationship business, and it's a win-win business. And if you're not a critical, if you're, I wouldn't say critical thinking happens everywhere, can happen everywhere. If you're not a person that can solve problems with people, solve problems with people, if you're not one of those, this is not going to be the right environment for you to succeed. Um, but I'd say if you want to get involved, join a community. Join a community that has actual assets. So now I'm going to get on my soapbox. This is something I think is really important and for people to understand and whatever whoever's reading this or listening to this, whatever. If you don't have a community that has access to inventory, you're wasting your time. So keep your money and go figure it out by yourself or create a note and you'd be better off doing that way. And you would learn, you know, from the ground as opposed to somebody else telling you some garbage about notes. It is important to get educated. It is important to learn online, but get in a community where assets are actually being bought and sold between people. Find out where that is. Learn with each other. Go together. All right? Go together, you're further. That's what I have.
I think that's great advice. I think that's great advice. Thank you. How can people get in contact with you? How can we find you? How can we reach you?
I don't want to be reached. I'll be real honest with you.
Okay.
You don't. I'm not in the public eye. I'm not marketing myself and my talents and skills. I'm not for everybody. So getting access to me is not really something I'm thrilled about. Um, you can you can find my man Brian and you can connect with him. But if you don't have my information, it's probably for a good reason. So I'm an asset manager in the background, doing what I do and actually closing deals. So that's what I'll say about that.
All right, all right. Well, Mr. Exclusive, thank you for your insight. Thank you for your knowledge and your words of wisdom. Best of
Yeah.
luck as you press to 10x your business and continue to educate and grow your own financial freedom and that of your clients as well. So I'll be talking to you soon.
Yes.
This is great, and yeah, I'll see you. I'll see you shortly.
Appreciate you. Take care.
Thanks.